Hey YouTube, and thank you for watching Junkworks DIY Garage. Well, as you can see, I'm kind of in the middle of putting tools in this box. And the video has kind of changed a little bit beyond what I was planning on doing, as a lot of things do. So I just figured right up front, I'm just going to tell you kind of, this is going to be me going through my tools and all my toolboxes. I'm going to organize this toolbox just into tools that I use for all my mechanical, working on cars, that kind of stuff purposes. And the ones that I use the most. So I'm not digging through different types of tools. I'm one of those people, I like all my certain types of tools all in one place. Well, I'm breaking that habit because that causes me to have to walk back and forth to this toolbox or back and forth to that toolbox or into that toolbox and find what I need and then walk back to my project. What this box is going to be is your basic, what you use all the time, what I use all the time anyway, or more often for most of my needs, so that I can bring this cart to the job that I'm working on. That is the plan I'm getting into. This is something I do in a lot of mechanic shops, but because I was a home shop, I never really thought, I needed to. But because of my stupid leg, walking is getting more and more difficult. So therefore, the more I can bring to my project, the better. And I also believe this will get me more organized in the long run, because there's a lot of tools I just don't use very often, and they don't need to be things I'm digging through and taking up space in a box where I just want the basics. Then on the lines of that, it kind of turned into, this is what, as a starting out mechanic, somebody who wants to work on cars more often, the basic tools that you may want to buy from beginning to end kind of thing. Obviously you're always going to be picking up tools if this is something you want to do, or if this is something you decide to do. Some people think they want to do something and realize it's not the thing they want to do. So there's some information in that as well. So without further ado, let's get back to doing the video. And in my opinion, I think the first thing a mechanic should buy for his toolbox is a good set of just open-in, box-in, hand wrenches. Nothing fancy. You don't need the ratcheting crap. You don't need things that fold. You don't need specific tip types and everything like that. And I won't even say that you need any of these, well, maybe from here up. I would say if you can get a set of 3/4 on down to, say, what is it? Maybe 5/16. 5/16 is pretty small. You probably really only need 3/8. From 3/8 up to 3/4. That's what I would say that most of your jobs on an American car, so this is classic car. See, I work on a lot of classic cars. This isn't going to really apply to people that are working on only foreign cars. So we'll go through that as well. So for American cars, and I would say if you're working on any kind of car, as far as American cars, up to into the 90s, they still have some of the US or standard, which I wouldn't call them standard anymore, but that's what we call them, standard wrenches. But my basic thing is not the type of wrenches, not the brand of wrenches, not anything like that, but the sizes of wrenches. You don't need real big, and you don't need super small at first. Just a basic set in standard 3/8 to 3/4 is what I would say. So these days I do work on some foreign cars, and a lot of American cars, so to speak, quote unquote American cars, have foreign fasteners in them, kind of a mix. Most of the ones I work on are old enough that they kind of have mixed them together. But regardless, I don't have near as much metric, and this is all I've really needed. From 7mm up to 18mm, which honestly, go to 15mm is really about all I normally use, although I will say that my 16mm is gone. So yeah, I would say get all the way up to 18. If you got all the way up to 18, you're good to go. I will say 22mm, I find I use this for a lot of stuff. So it is one of those ones you probably, although you don't need right off the bat, I didn't have this for a long time. But it is something that might make your job easier. And yet again, you don't need the ratcheting, you don't need certain size or certain mechanisms and things like that. Just a basic set of box end and open end wrenches. And it is good to get the ones that have a bit of a curve on one end. Though that, you know, that helps you get into places and get you what you basically need. Something else about wrenches you'll notice maybe is that I have 2 of every size. Especially if you're only using wrenches and don't have sockets, you're going to need 2 of every type, so you can hold on the back nut while you're or take off the nut while you're holding the other side of the bolt. So second tool I will say you should buy, and yet again you'll see I use my tools, so not everything's in here, but set of screwdrivers, both Phillips and standard. And I would highly recommend this. Was, well, there's a mix of things now since I've, you know, broke, lost, replaced, whatever different tools I have, but this set here that you'll see with these red and blue handles and the white and blue handles, or clear and blue I would say, I got those in like a box. In fact, I still have the box. Came in that box right there. Kind of cool memory. But yet again, part 2, I would get a set of screwdrivers and buy the biggest, you know, a full set. Phillips and standard. You're going to use stubbies, you're going to use small stuff, you're going to use tinier stuff, and you're going to use big stuff. I mean, you're going to need an entire set of screwdrivers. Doesn't matter if it's standard or Phillips. I highly recommend both. You will use them. Yes, these days you're going to use your standard ones for a pry bar, probably more than you're going to use as a screwdriver, but for little doodads and thingamajigs, sometimes a good flathead screwdriver, or standard screwdriver is called, will get the job done when other things won't. But there you go. So we got wrenches and screwdrivers. Those are the first 2 things I bought as a quote-unquote mechanic or to work on cars. Those two things right there. If you stuck with those, you can get almost every job done, from, you know, your basic stuff, oil changes, spark plugs, everything. I mean, yeah, you would be a pain in the butt, but you can get it done. Believe me, I've done it. Even you might say oil wrench. You know what? Phillips screwdriver shoved through the side of an oil canister and or oil filter, and it's off. So don't like to do it, and it's messy, but it works. And as a young one, when I had no money, this is what I started out with, and still to this day tend to gravitate towards these basic tools, because I don't like a lot of air tools and electrical tools. They get the job done, but they're loud and annoying. Sometimes I just want peace and quiet when I'm working on a car. But that's neither here nor there. We got 2 things in this box that I know are going to go in this box. Notice I do have my basic smaller set of wrenches. I don't even have it up to 3/4. I think 5/8 is the biggest one I have here. That'll get most of your jobs done for the most part. Now if I need something else, or I decide I'm walking to my other toolboxes over here, because I'm going to put that back on top of here and get that back there. If I find I'm walking to this box back here where it's going to be really often for a tool, that tool will go into here. But for now, I'm going to start with just the basics, smaller stuff. I did grab these because I really like these and I use them quite often, and they'll actually go up to 3/4. So if I really need a box end wrench that's 3/4, I can go grab it. Most of the time this will do it. I do not like undoing large nuts or large bolts with these ratcheting ones, even though they're, you know, supposedly warranted. I have no idea where to gear wrench. I think I got these actually a long time ago at Sears, and I no longer have it Sears anywhere near me. I'd have to drive for several hours to take any of these tools, and then I wouldn't even get a decent tool back. So yet again, going away from the story, I do use these quite often. If you have the means to get a set of these type of wrenches, whether they're gear wrench or anything else, ratchet wrenches make the job easier and nicer. Next thing, if you're going to be working on cars, good set of sockets. This is where I honestly would spend maybe a little more money, although I gotta say I have some Harbor Freight socket wrenches and socket set. They're a cheapy one that kind of comes in a big kit that I keep in my truck, and really they work good. I've been very happy with them. These are all Craftsman, yet again, most of them, not all of them, but you don't have to buy the best of the best, and Craftsman is far from the best of the best and never has been the best of the best, but these have gotten me by. I would suggest buying a basic set of 3/8 sockets to start out with, just 3/8. And then a lot of people will tell you to go to 1/2 inch and don't worry about your quarter, but honestly, I probably use my 1/4 inch stuff almost as much as I use my 3/8. I almost never use 1/2 inch stuff. Why? Because I'll use probably like a small breaker bar, or now I have a 3/8 longer breaker bar, and these sockets will hold up to that. You're going to wind up with a set with standard and a few of your deep well sockets. But honestly, most of the time I'm doing a job, I'll grab these deep well ones and a wrench to figure out what I need, and then you can usually use a deep well on everything. The thinner sockets don't always fit over what you need, so regardless, plus this gives you a little bit of extra length sometimes so you're not breaking your knuckles. So I honestly do tend to gravitate towards these, but at the same time, if you're too far away, you're not getting as good a purchase and you have a chance of slipping off. So, you know, use the right thing for the right job if it works. But a basic set of 3/8 sockets is what I'm trying to get to. Over time, as you figure out what you need for tools, then buy that. And especially in like off-ball sockets, some of the bigger ones and different types of things that I have over here, those are all things that over time I bought as I needed. You don't need every single thing in order. I mean, yeah, a lot of people don't want to be missing a spot in their socket rail or whatever, but there's only so many times you're going to use some sockets, and so don't buy everything in the book and realize you're only using 1 or 2 of them. It's a waste of space in your toolbox. As time goes on, you will build up little things here and there, and I implore you, is that the right word? Please don't get caught up in the name game, the tool snob game. If the tool will do the job, use it until it breaks. If you find you've used it until it broke, then go buy the better one. If you're finding you only use it to where you're never going to break it, then it's doing the job. If you find you hardly ever use it, but you use it once in a while and then you break it, you can still probably buy 2 or 3 of those in your lifetime for what it cost for the other brand that costs a ridiculous amount and isn't made enough better. We'll put it that way. So don't get caught up in that game of having to have the best of the best tools and the best of the best toolboxes. I mean, you just don't need them. We got a little further with the toolbox here. Kind of got it in its home. Obviously, I'm planning on bringing it out of here to go do jobs, but most of my jobs I'm actually doing right here in my garage. So I always liked it when my toolbox was over here and I could just go back and forth, but I could also bring it in front of me. Whatever I want to do, that's beside the point. We're going through the basic tools that I think everybody should have, and so far we started out with wrenches. Then once you have those basic things, these basic open end, box end wrenches up to 3/4, then you can start looking at doing more. As time has gone on, all these wrenches here I have just gotten at garage sales, swap meets, markets, bought new ones. These are all brand new and I hardly ever use them. I'll probably do a video on those at some point soon. But regardless, these are the wrenches that I almost never get into this box for, unless I have something really thin and tight I need to get into, or something that is in a really strange place that I need to get into. or I'm doing a specific job that this tool is made for. But otherwise, I almost never get into this box. Same with this right here. This is all metric stuff. Little doodads and thingamajigs. Most of these are from like paint guns or little things I put together, furniture or something. Because these little skinny wrenches, if you can get these for free in some sort of package thing that you put together a piece of furniture or something like that, keep it around. Because I've used these actually more than you would think. Weird. I don't even know where some of these things I think I just got free in boxes. A lot of these ones. And then a few, you know, little specialty ones, not really specialty, but they're shorter, fatter, or longer, or skinnier, who knows. But anyway, yet again, I really don't get into this as much. I probably get into this one more than I get into that other one, though. Then we got our screwdrivers. Yet again, up here, I got all different kind of screwdrivers, doodad, dilly-majiggers, and dolly whoppers. I don't know. The one thing I do say, I mean, you need to, I would say go grab, oh, that's not even what I was going to get. Grab a set of Torx. You'll find you'll use Torx, but quite honestly, I have Torx in my, with my ratchets and my socket sets, and I use those more than I use the ones with handles. I also do suggest getting longer ones and shorter ones, because there'll be places you can't use these long ones that you need these shorter ones, and places where these shorter ones won't reach for these long ones. So yet again, later on, as time goes on and you find you need to start using a lot of Torx stuff, which at some point, if you keep doing this, you will, go get, I would say your next thing to buy would be probably a good set of Torx wrenches. And probably one of these, impact screwdriver. Bought this for $6.95. Probably paid less than that because it was probably something that I got for a better deal at Larry Tool AJ impact driver. So anyway, bought that at a pawn shop is where I got that at. And then a lot of these, some of these are, my dog chewed this. My dad was so mad at my dog when this happened. So that's kind of more of a memory than anything I use that much. Little nut drivers. More nut drivers, some longer screwdrivers, and then pipe cleaner type things out. They fit up there. Regardless, well, and actually these actually have, these are for working on carburetors. So that's why that's up there. Alright, so anyway, these are things that as time goes on and you find you need a tool that's specific to a job, go buy that tool or that small set. You don't need every single one in the tool truck. So then we got our sockets. Now, if you can afford and you have the money to go out and buy this, it's a 1/2 inch, 3/8, actually it's 3/8 and 1/4. This all came in a set, minus this stuff here. This was an open end of the box. This was the bottom, that was the top. I've actually just finally broke this. I keep not wanting to break this apart, but the latches broke off a long time ago, so I decided to break it apart so it would fit in this box for now. This is not going to be the end-all be-all of what I'm doing, but it'll kind of get me knowing what I really do use and don't use in this before I go and build something to hold it. But that's beside the point. Back to the video here. If you can afford to get one of these sets at a decent price, I would recommend going ahead and doing that to some extent. But if you're just starting out and you have no money, go buy a basic set of 3/8, just like I talked about before. But regardless of that, I use pretty much everything in here fairly constantly, except for maybe every single one of these, although I have actually been to a point where I've really been reaching for something and use those. Until I got these, I would go out and just buy some of these. I would just, when you buy your 3/8 set, the next thing you want to buy as far as sockets, go grab some long extensions. They are very nice to have. And then maybe a set of these it would be nice. That's another place though where really you'll find that there's certain ones you use and a lot that you don't when it comes to these kind of sockets. But yet again, that would probably be your next bet. And then you're going to want to go into impacts and those kind of things, which these are things that you can wait until you know for sure what you want to do, because this is when you start spending a lot more money on impact wrenches and things like that. Only thing I ever bought off a Snap-on truck, one of the least used tools I use. My guy I worked for forced me to buy that. Swore up and down I'd use it all day long every day, and I really don't. But that's beside the point. I spent the money on it. It's a Blue Point, not even Snap-on, so there you go. He told me I had to buy something off the Snap-on truck, and he wanted me to get one of those. And but he wanted me to get the Snap-on one, and I didn't. But that's beside the point yet again. So there's mostly, some of these aren't impacts. I admit I don't always use an impact. You do what you want to do based on your own information and what you want to be safe like. Next thing, Allen wrenches. I talked about the torque wrenches. I would say Allen wrenches and torque wrenches, those are kind of, they come around the same time. You'll start needing them. So you'll probably want a set of those. These are Pittsburgh ones. I've been happy with them so far. I haven't had them that long, but I can't remember. I needed one of them because I cut up another one that I had, and it was the only one I had, but I needed to cut it up for a tool, so I went and grabbed this because it had whatever size it was that I needed, so I could replace it. Yet again, don't know much about these, but for what I've used them for so far, they've done the job perfectly fine. Then, set of pliers. I have those ones there because those you need for, like, when you're doing water pumps and things like that. You're doing hoses, hose clamps. These come in handy for that. So I keep those there. As far as the rest of the pliers, they will stay in this box right here. And I even have another set of those, and I got more of these. These are the more handy ones. I do like these as well for that. I may actually throw like the smaller one in there. But quite honestly, I like keeping these things as far away from me as I can, because it's too tempting just to go grab something like this and do everything with it. And you shouldn't do that. It makes it really hard for the next guy after you've stripped everything out. Alright, so that is that drawer. These are, yet again, you need them. You're gonna need these things when you are in dire need of getting something off, out, or in, and it's just what you need to use. But for the most part, I don't use these a ton. And something you also may want to get is a very large crescent wrench. This is a 15-inch, and it's actually a crescent wrench, made in the USA even. This is one of those things that when you need it, you need it. And if you don't have it, you're not going to be able to get the job done unless you have a wrench that's the bigger size wrenches. But unless you're working on big diesel trucks or something like that, you really don't need really huge wrenches. But regardless, this will get the job done when other things won't. Now, this is a crescent one. I'm sure it costs a lot of money, but I'm also sure I picked it up at a garage sale swap meet somewhere like that. I really don't know where I get. This might have been my grandfather's, actually, to be honest. And I have a Harbor Freight one that's the same. It's a 15-inch big one like this that I keep in my truck just because who cares if it gets stole, because it was cheap anyway. But I've beat the crud out of it, and it's done just fine too. So in fact, I probably use it more than I use this one. This one hangs on my wall and rarely gets used. Something else, pry bar set. I got these ones, are Harbor Freight GPs. They have done pretty well for me. You can see I've abused them. They've chipped them, cracked them. This actually, I hit it with a hammer, you know, and it was a big one, and it finally broke. I was able to duct tape it just to keep my hand from getting owied when I pry on it, but it still works. I have had 2 sets of these, and the other set, I think I probably broke all the handles off it at some point, but it's because of me abusing them, not because they don't work or because they're cheap. Although you may be able to get a Snap-on pair and beat the crap out of them, and then you can bring them back, but that's up to you. But these have done the job really well, and this little one is really, I've beat the crud out of this and it still keeps holding up. I've hit that with a hammer several times. And I use it for chisel, I've used it for a screwdriver. I've used it for a pry bar. I mean, they're pretty handy tools and something that you may want to pick up fairly quickly. Something else I have in the box here is these extensions, or not extensions, but socket wrenches that have the swivels. I would almost say you need one of these. Although the fact that I've always borrowed my dad's when I felt like I needed one. These were my dad's. I got these from when my dad passed. So, but since I've had them, I've found that they do make life really easy. I would go buy a fairly long one with a swiveled head and some kind of curved handle. That one I probably grab 90% of the time rather than these two here. And then this stubby one, I never have found that stubby things, I don't use them a ton. When you need them, they're nice to have when you just really got a tight place to get into, but otherwise I don't find I use that often. This one right here, this is one of my favorite things I've bought from Harbor Freight. This 3/8 breaker bar. I've used it quite a bit since I bought it. It's held up well. I'm happy with it. A 1/2 inch one, which is just overkill huge. I've used it a couple times and I was glad I had it when I needed it. These smaller ones don't use a ton, but it's nice when you need them. All these three here. So breaker bars or something, I would at least go get, these two here and then buy these if you decide you need them. So quite honestly, I have not filled this up by any means. I still need to, like I said, go through it and organize it. I'm just kind of putting things where I think I might want them. Razor blades and a razor knife, those are something you're going to want to have. A flashlight, they come in handy. Magnets, get magnets, they work good for this kind of stuff. I'll have another video on when I get done customizing my box, so you can go check that one out, and hopefully it won't be quite as long-winded. So we got our basic tools. Now what? Some kind of basic electrical tools. Now if you know nothing about electrical, this is probably going to be over your head, but I really truly believe if you're working on cars, you need to at least know a basic idea of how electrical works, and at the very least how a 12-volt system works. So what do you need? First of all, probably a good set of cutters, strippers, and crimpers. Those are things you're going to need. Maybe a test light like that. I have some wire in here because the things are never long enough, so I can go from one end to another end of a car and do some testing on things with all my stuff. That's why I have a fairly thick gauge wire here, and there's a whole bunch more wire and clips and gator clips and things like that in here. Obviously need electrical tape, some battery cleaner tools, and then the expensive thing, the multimeter. Well, they don't have to be expensive anymore. This was my dad's. It's a Fluke. Costs you lots of money, but you can go to Harbor Freight, and you used to be able to get them for free, and they work just fine. Now you probably have to pay a couple bucks for them or whatever. They don't seem to have a lot of free stuff anymore, but they're still cheap, but they work. And you can go anywhere and buy fairly cheap ones that work decently. For most of the things of automotive and 12 volt, you don't need extreme accuracy, I would say. But those are the things I'm going to have in this box that I do think at some point every mechanic should have. Going through my boxes here to see what I want to put in that. These are all kind of specialty tools. Things like this I may want to put in that box if I find I'm going after it, because I use this quite a bit. But I want to leave it with those things right now because they all kind of go together. But most of these things are things that, compression tester. Honestly, I hardly ever use a compression tester. I probably should use them more when I'm buying cars and things like that, but I rarely actually use a compression tester. all these things are just kind of things that as you need them, you can buy them. Steering wheel puller, I've used that a ton in my lifetime, but who knows with newer cars if you ever need to do that. So, all right, air tools. Now this is a completely different realm of things, so maybe I'll do a body shop one. If you guys want to see what a body shop guy that's going to go into doing auto body should buy, put a comment below and maybe I'll go into that stuff. Well, I thought I should revisit air tools because I noticed kind of when I was going through the video a couple things in that drawer that I should have probably brought out as far as the actual mechanical parts or mechanical tools. Air impact hammer for a pickle fork works great for doing ball joints and those kind of things. So that is something that you may need at some point when you get to that point and decide you're going to be doing a lot of that kind of stuff. Air ratchet, these get into lots of places, but honestly, since I bought this, I probably, and you know, I just put an end on it for that. I probably rarely ever use this, although this will get in tighter places, but usually if I have to go to something that tight, I wind up just doing it by hand. But that's just because I really hate the sound of air tools. They're just loud and obnoxious. But sometimes they get the job done, and if you're really trying to make money, a good air ratchet will replace a lot of hand work. So that'll get the job done. Air drill, kind of the same thing. Since I got the cordless drill, I really don't hardly ever use this, but I do use this in tight places. Yet again, this gets way tighter places than that will. So it does have its place. These all have their place. Then we got this. I use this now pretty much just for grinding paint and that kind of stuff. But I used to put these type of things on that one. More cut-off wheels. I would use this for doing cut-off stuff a lot. This is a Blue Point too, so I guess I did buy two things from the Snap-on truck. But I think I actually got this used somewhere, like in a pawn shop or something, to be honest. I cannot remember. But regardless, those are things that, you know, the air, you may want these ones here. That one pretty much can be replaced with this one. Most of this is body shop and grinders and those kind of things. Which yet again, you probably are going to want. These right here. You can buy one. They're $9.99 at Harbor Freight all the time. I got 4. Because then I can just put whatever I want on the end of that. I can plug it in and I can go to town without having to change anything until I use it up. With that should come one of these. You're responsible for your own safety. But they're very handy for cutting things loose that won't come off. And for the price, there's no use in fighting with anything if it won't come off. Just use one of these if you're able to. Alright, we're almost done here. We're to my last box. And, well, last boxes, I guess you should say. Well, I can start over here. I have marking stuff. Things that, once again, you'll figure out what you need when you need it. These are all, you know, depends on the type of job you're trying to do. This is all kind of layout tools and marking tools. This is actually a fairly recent thing I've done, and I like it because I know where to go get it. So that'll all stay there. I'm gonna definitely throw some pens and pencils and markers into the box over there, but you can figure that one out. More layout tools that are bigger that won't fit in the box. All right. Thread lockers and things like that, yet again, I can come over here and grab them when I need them. Although, really, I probably should have like some thread locker, like, or Permatex, whatever you want to call it. I should probably have these in there, but I'm going to leave them in here for now. If I find I'm coming back here too much for them, then I will. More pens and markers. Snap ring pliers. This is something I rarely ever use, but when you need it, you need it. So you're probably going to want to get a set of these. You know, they have them now. You can get a pretty decent set and you can change the tips on them and they go every which way. Or you can buy a fairly inexpensive set of these that'll get most of the jobs done. Every now and then I do find that these ones will bend if it's a really harsh snap ring. We already went through these, don't need to talk about it because it's already getting too long. Files. Files are something you will probably need. Most of these are garage sale and stuff I got from my dad, stuff I got from some of my dad's friends, all that kind of stuff. This I've had for a long time, and it's got Chinese writing or Japanese writing, I don't know what kind of writing, but they've lasted forever and they work really good when you need to file little tiny things or sharpen little tiny things. I would suggest picking some of those up. And files, and keep your broken files. If you break a file or find a piece of broken file, sometimes these come in more handy than a full file. So you know. Cutting tools. An X-Acto tool. As I slice myself on there, now I'm actually pretty far away, it just doesn't look like it. This one bugs me, it's just too cluttered, and I had it all nice and then got more stuff that I found and started throwing stuff in. But regardless, beside the point, I'll have room now that I have that other box, so I may have to change this. Got like bolt cutters. I have more of these in other places. I'm using them or was using them for something else, so I have a whole set of these. These are actually the Weiss ones. Those are pretty expensive. I actually found those, I think, free at a garage sale, and they work. Regardless, you're going to need some cutting tools. That's more body shop, but you will find even mechanical things. You'll have to cut things out of the way to fix something, especially if it is a wrecked car. Tap and die sets. Another thing I rarely use, but when you need it, you need it. These are fairly inexpensive ones. One was mine, one was my dad's, and this one was my grandfather's. And some of these things are things that, you know, I bought as I needed them. Most of these taps and things, you can buy these as you need them fairly inexpensively. This is a helicoil set, which did come in handy a couple times too. So, but that kind of goes hand in hand with these, so that's why those are in there. Brake tools. Definitely probably going to be doing some brake jobs no matter what kind of mechanic shop you're in. They just happen. So, and these are things that as you need them, you can buy them. I got this at a garage sale, this whole set, for a couple bucks. I don't remember exactly how much, but it wasn't more than $5, I don't think. And it comes in really handy, especially the spring one. And this is drum brakes now. Yet again, I'm an old fart. I got old cars, but a lot of even new cars have. Some of them have drum brakes, I believe anyway, up till fairly recent, at the very least. And things for pushing in brakes and calipers. So that's, you know, you're gonna need that. Brake line tools. Really haven't used these a lot. These are some things I found that was in my dad's stuff. Line cutters. These are to flare. So I really haven't actually used these. I don't do a lot of brake from beginning to end jobs. I just redo brakes. But we are literally to the last box here. In here I have sandpaper. Lots and lots of sandpaper. And for keeping your sandpaper, these files. This is an old stainless steel one. I don't know if it was for an office equipment or for something else, but glad I have it. It works awesome, and I think the plastic ones would work just fine as well. But yet again, body shop stuff, but you're going to need sandpaper to clean things up. My doodads and thingamajigs junk drawer. Surprisingly, things like this for scraping and pulling and prying and pushing, actually a lot of these things, even the butter knife, come in handy for something. And these are all things that I've just kept around or went and found and did the job and threw it in this drawer because I went and found it because I didn't have anything else to do or any other way of doing it. So there you go. More Allen wrenches. You are going to need a decent sized set of them. Especially what you'll find is you'll have a lot of the smaller ones, and then you're going to have some great big ones. depending on the size. And I keep these anytime I find these or get one in like one of those little package things that come with the furniture or whatever. I'll throw them in here. I used to have them all organized. Then I got that other set of Pittsburgh ones from Harbor Freight, and I really don't get in here that much. One of these is for, I do a lot of brakes with, but I can come in here and cut these up for whatever tool I need that'll fit into a socket. That's why you'll see little parts and pieces that I've kept even after I've cut them up to make tools out of. So there you go. Little tip. Plumbing tools. You may need these, but very rarely. I have them just because, although these actually do work good for like more bigger bolts and things like that, where I don't have that size of a wrench if it's, you know, huge. That's kind of what I use these ones for. The rest of them pretty much just plumbing or cool old tools. I don't know. Probably won't use those much in mechanics, but you never know. Punches and chisels. This is definitely a place where you can buy a little basic set, but then as you need them, figure out what you need. And you can find these all over in pawn shops and swap meet, those kind of things. Just grab them if you see them. Doesn't matter what the ends look like or what they used to be used for. Grab them and you'll find a use for them. And I got some dollies in here. I just throw those in there because they work in here for when I need them. Also body shop. Plug-in tools. So plug-in drill. Gonna need one of those. They're cheap. You can get them pretty easily. I got a couple drill sharpeners. They were my grandfather's, and I ended up with them, so they are in here. Heat gun. Heat gun is very useful if you're careful with it. And I got some soldering irons under here as well that plug in. Yet again, useful if you're doing electrical and things. Although I am one of the ones that I don't think soldering in automobiles is a very good idea for a lot of cases, because solder does break. But you guys can argue about that amongst yourselves. That is all I have to say on the subject, and we are done. Well, YouTube, I know that was really long. Hopefully I can cut it down some. And I did a lot of talking, but this was just a video I decided I wanted to put out and put up. So therefore, if you're watching it to the end, thank you very much. But I do think, yet again, it's one of those things that there's a lot of people that either don't know if they want to get into it, or if they do want to get into it, don't know what should I buy at first. Anymore with people, you almost have to go to some sort of schooling these days to learn how to work on anything these days. But if you're younger and kind of getting into cars and automotive, and you just want to work on your own stuff, everything in here will get the job done. Is this everything I'm going to put in here and leave? No. I'm sure I'm going to be grabbing more things out of my other boxes and filling this up more. But quite honestly, I'm actually surprised of how few things I really do use on everything. Really, this is it. I mean, and the biggest thing is my sockets. I mean, those are the most I have. A basic set of screwdrivers, basic set of wrenches, and the sockets. It just does everything. Yes, by hand, but yet again, I like that. I need to move on. But regardless, it doesn't take much to do mechanics, even today. Yes, you're going to need more electronics and those kind of things if you're working on new stuff. But a lot of people are holding on to their old cars now. I think more and more people are appreciating the fact that not only can they not afford a brand new car anymore, but they can't work on a brand new car anymore. So therefore, people like me especially, who I've been doing it my whole life. I've been literally underneath, I got pictures of me underneath the motorcycle when I was that big. I mean, I hope I can find, if I can find the picture, I might try and figure a way to put it in here. But regardless, I've been literally working under cars my whole life. and I cannot figure out these newer cars. I bought an '04 Jeep Liberty, and I'm questioning whether or not how much stuff I'm going to be able to do on that. I'm hoping it's still early, early enough that there won't be too many electronics that I can screw up, but there probably is. Regardless, I think I've talked your ear off way more than enough. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. Hopefully you've gotten something out of this, and if nothing else, you've kind of got a tour of everything in my toolboxes. Which, you know, I have probably more than the average guy, but I really don't have anything super expensive. I have nothing that's, you know, nothing that any one of you can't afford over a period. Thanks for watching Junkworks DIY Garage, where I'm proud to say I'm a jack of all and master of none. You all have a good one.